In this video, we're going to look at getting started in Jamovi, and I'm going to use a different data set to show this than what you'll be using in the workshop, partly because we haven't collected the data you're going to use in the workshop yet, and also because it'll prompt you to think about what you're going to do with your data rather than only following along with this. However, you can follow along with this one if you want to first. I will make the data available to you. So I'm using the apples data set. This is from an old student project, long time ago now. Trying to think if the prices of apples have changed. This was probably 20 years ago now that I think about it. So we have this data, and what we're wanting to do is to describe it and summarize it. So we may not go through all these variables, but the first step is to, and in the workshop activities, I've asked you to make a table of each of your variables and describe what they are. So I'm not going to do that here. I will post answers, but you can have a go at doing that based on the instructions. But we're going to go through each variable, decide what type of variable it is, and then look at how to summarize it. So if we look first at this column here, the variety. So these are all the apples that they included in the study. And they were looking to see, I think, if there's a relationship between the cost of the apples and then how good the apple is. And I'm not sure if they were working out how good it was based on the density of the apple. I don't know if a higher density is a better apple. I've got no idea. But we could make some comparisons there. So the variety. Now this is going to be a nominal variable. It's categorical, but there's no order to it, so it's nominal. If we want to explore this, we can go to exploration, and I'm just going to go to descriptives. I think you can turn these references off if you don't want to see them. So I don't know what Hadley is. Color palette. Let's go green for apples. References. We'll hide the references. P-value format. That all looks fine. So hopefully getting started in Jamovi is fairly simple. You kind of just have to click around for what you want. And then if you want to go deeper into the R code, you can do that later. So I want to summarize the varieties. I know that it's categorical. A suitable plot for a categorical variable is going to be a bar chart, possibly a pie chart. I noticed they don't give that option in here. A lot of statisticians do not like pie charts. They can be good in moderation in some situations. So what we can see is that they have a designed experiment because they've got equal numbers of each type of apple. So I don't know that this bar chart is particularly useful, and I probably wouldn't include it in a report, but it's always helpful just to look at things quickly and to see what they did. If they had a different number of each type of apple, then it might be more interesting. So we would like to count them up. I wonder, I'm just looking at it here and it's giving us them all together, and I would like those numbers by group. So can we just, no, we can't just split by it. Frequency table. There we go. So 48 of each variety, which makes 25%, and then a cumulative percentage, which I don't think we need in this case. So that's describing the first one. Not really much to see there. I think there may have been, I think they did completely design this experiment now that I think about it, because that looks like it's a multiple of 12. So they were probably dividing things up to get the same number of apples from each location and each corporation. So we could also look at the variety. Well, let's do that. Let's have a look at per location and see how that changes. Yeah. So the variety, oh, that's from suburb. I wanted corporation. That's probably also corporation. Coles, IGA, Independent, and Woolworths. There we go. So yes, they've sampled 12 from each of them. Can we also split by location? I'm kind of curious to see what will happen. Didn't they do a lovely job of setting up this? It's completely balanced, this design, because they've got exactly the same number of samples from each combination. So that's quite lovely. I don't think we really need it in this case. So that's a categorical variable, which is nominal. I don't think we have any ordinal variables in this data set. The only thing to remember with ordinal data is that if you're presenting it on a graph, you want to present the categories in order. So you probably want to make sure that that's working out for you. I don't know how Jamovi does it. If it's doing them alphabetically, then you may have to strategically rename your categories to make them come out in order there. That might be a question for a later workshop when we have some ordinal data to look at. Let's have a look at some continuous data. So cost per kilogram. So I'm going to take that out, cost per kilogram. I do not want to see a bar chart. Now we've got the mean and the median here, but really before I decide which kind of summary statistics I want to present, I want to know what this looks like. The mean and the standard deviation is the most useful if it's approximately normal. If it's not approximately normal, then the mean and the standard deviation can actually be a little bit misleading, and you'd be better off presenting the median and the interquartile range, or quartile 1 to quartile 3, which we can't see here. Percentile values, that might give it to us. Now we've got the percentiles. So we'd present the median with the 25th and the 75th percentile. But let's have a look at a chart first. So let's have a look at histogram. This is fine. It's not perfect, but that can change depending on how you bin it. And I don't think we can change the number of bins in Jamovi. So that's one of the limitations. So if you were doing some exploring in Jamovi and you decided, actually, I really need to see this bar chart, but with slightly wider bins, then that might be time to look up the code for R and then perhaps put that code into the editor here. I think if I click on this graph, it's actually quite nice that if you click on the graph, it takes you back to the screen that created it. So that's quite nice. So although this is not perfect, it's good enough. The mean is approximately in the middle, and we can see that anyway from the descriptives because the mean is quite close to the median. Actually, they're nearly identical. And I'm going to say it's close enough that showing the mean and standard deviation will be a good summary. So if I was putting this onto a table, they are the statistics that I would want to include there. I feel like I've got a lot of screens showing. Okay, let's try another one to see if we find anything different. Okay, let's get that one back. How do we, I don't want to lose this plot, so I'm not quite sure how we keep it before we're going to the next one unless we cut and paste it. Typing something in here, enter. Okay, looks like I've clicked around enough that I've started off a fresh descriptives. I'm sure we will all get better at this as the semester advances. So let's have a look at a couple of others and see if there's anything different. Please show me the histogram. Interesting. This looks like it might almost be a few distributions imposed on each other. So perhaps we would want to split that up by variety. I don't like this graph. I'm not sure how I feel about that one. Let's try a box plot. I think I like this one better. So there's not much you can do about the style in Jamovi. You kind of have to take, to me, if that was separate bars that were like outlined, then maybe I would like it a bit better. But because there's not a huge number of observations, it looks like a city skyline more than a histogram. So I'm not overly fond of this particular graph, but it probably looks different with different data. And it would look different from a different package that where it drew it differently. However, the box plot, I do like this better. So it looks like there might be some differences in mass. If we're summarizing them all together, I would probably be okay with using the mean and standard deviation, even though it looks a little bit chunky. It's a little bit skewed to one side. I would accept either if you have a different view. So I'm just looking at the numbers here. So this is overall the mass, and we could split it by the variety. And I think there's probably a way to make it do that across the rows rather than down the column. No, that's not what I want. Variable across the rows. There we go. Let's have a look at so I think we'll all have to look up how to make sure we get a fresh window if we don't want to lose what we've done, or cut and paste it straight into whatever document you're looking at. Let's have a look at the volume. That's interesting. Again, I wonder if that is due to variety. So I think we're getting these weird distributions partly because it's a small sample size and partly because I think there are some differences between the varieties, and mixing them all together is making some weirdly chunky distributions. So you could summarize that with a box plot and then the median and an interquartile range. Or you could probably argue for a normal distribution as well. I don't think I have strong feelings either way about this one. What else do we have? Density. Well, this one's interesting because it's definitely got some skew to it. It's not just weird. So this might be one where you do use the median and the interquartile range, possibly even the min and the max, or you comment on the outliers, because we have some very low density apples. Does that mean they're old if they're low density? I don't know. I don't know enough about apples, I've just realized. Let's split by variety. So it's the red delicious are having the low density ones. I do prefer the box plots in this case. They show the outliers much more clearly. So that's sort of you can sort of see how to look around Jamovi and find the things that you're interested in. Have a go at summarizing the data that we collected in class. I have said in the tutorial just to look at each variable separately and then maybe try two together. So you might find that when you're looking at it, just like we did here, you're thinking as you're looking at one variable, hold on, this might look weird because of a different variable, and then you want to look at two of them together. So the purpose is just to get used to deciding on descriptives. There's not always a single correct answer. Sometimes some people will go with mean and standard deviation and someone else will go with median and interquartile range. For the categorical variables, you definitely need counts and percentages. And I think, yeah, that's probably enough for this week. Have a go with R if this was too easy for you, and type out some of the code in the editor and see if you can make these histograms look a little bit better.